6:15 on Thursday, August 21st, 2025. Call this meeting of the Hamilton East Public Library Board please to order. First order of business is pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States Any changes to propose to the agenda for tonight? Any motion to approve the agenda as it stands? Motion from Kim, second from Susan, any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed? All right, agenda is adopted. So we move on to comments from the public. We have no comments from the public from this stage, so I will come back to you again when we get there. Next item of business is the HEPL bylaws. Melissa, can you tell us where we're at on bylaws and talk to us?
Last meeting, Andre made the proposed changes to just change the date of when we make committee appointments in the slate of officers based on when we have new board appointments, so that we don't make decisions about committees or a slate of officers before we know who are board. So those were the proposed changes to vote on for tonight. And then there was also a question, once we vote on those, there's some more discussion we wanted to have on another section about electronic.
Very good. By rule, I think Article 13, it has to be proposed at one meeting, and then, especially if all 7 of us aren't present, then we have to come back and approve it at the next meeting. So this is that second reading, and we're able to adopt it. Given that it was proposed last meeting, I think we need another motion today to adopt, or we do need one to adopt. Yes.
I'm sorry.
We should have.
You should have a motion if you're going to proceed.
I move to adopt the community bylaw. Second.
Motion by Susan, second by Michelle. Any discussion on the amended bylaws as provided prior to the meeting? Any changes? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Bylaws are adopted as amended. So, Melissa, you said there's a second.
Well, the next section, I think it's a little confusing because I think where we landed on this is that because of the way the law reads for electronic attendance, that you can attend 2 meetings virtually, which constitutes a set. Then you need to attend a meeting in person before you can attend more meetings virtually, and that it is is this correct, Beth, that is this the section you were?
No, what do you mean?
Oh, okay. Well, this would be, okay, so it's Article 6. No.
Article 4, Section 4.
Article 4, Section 4, changing the phrasing. It says a member must attend in person at least 1 meeting between a set, and we thought it might be more clear if it read between sets. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So that would be a proposed change if we want to vote on that for next meeting. So then it would, right now, it's a member may attend 2 consecutive meetings, a set, by electronic communication. A member must attend in person at least 1 meeting between a set that the member attends by electronic communication, unless the member's absence is due to, and then option. So then it would now read, a member must attend in person at least 1 meeting between sets. Yeah. Yep, it is a.
And it said 2 consecutive meetings, right?
Right.
But then there are other rules about you have to at least attend half of your meetings in a year. So it's not as though you can go 2 by Zoom, 1 here, 2 by Zoom, you know.
Yeah, right.
The math is covered in other sections.
Okay.
That would be a proposed change we'll look to in our next meeting.
Is there support to make that a proposal that we take up at our next meeting? Motion by Kim. Seconded by Craig, and we will take that up next time. Anything else on the bylaws?
No.
Okay. Well, then at this point, we have Mike to talk to us about library fiscal plan.
Yes, well, good evening. And before I jump into the fiscal plan, I'd like to start with some of the highlights of the last legislative session. It was a very active session, to say the least. Probably one of the most difficult sessions I've been through in my career. Just to kind of start off the tone of the session, in late January, I was talking to the director of the county association, and I said, David, I don't know how you feel, but it sure feels like it's a train going through this session and there's not much slowing it down. His response back to me was, it feels like the last week of the session down here and we're still in January. And so it was a very intense session with the intent of reducing property tax. And everyone had their own idea of what that would look like. It started off with the governor with the first version of Senate Bill 1. He had some pretty deep property tax cut in that proposal. That was part of his campaign promise. There was no replacement revenue that came along with it. It was truly going to be a loss of dollars across the state, and it wasn't unique to any particular type of unit. It was cities, county, towns, townships, libraries. It really was across the board. And then I know for a fact that the senators were actually negotiating with the governor to try to come up with a plan that might be less of a cut. And ultimately, then the Senate came out with a version that would limit future revenue versus rewinding and cutting property taxes back. And that proposal was basically they would give us a 0% increase in our general fund levy for 2026, 1% 27, 2% 28, and then we go back to the 6-year non-farm personal income factor. You're gonna hear me talk about it a little bit. And the governor still wasn't real happy with that proposal. Neither that proposal also did not have any replacement revenue in it. But when it went over to the House, Representative Thompson, who's the chair of House Ways and Means, has spent quite a bit of time coming up with a property tax reform bill. But it didn't just stop at property tax. It included a significant changes to local option income tax, which I'm going to talk to you about in greater depth later as well. But really how it's a complicated piece of legislation, and there were legislators that were concerned about that. But at the end of the day, how they got the governor across the finish line with that bill is they then included what's called now a property tax credit, different than a circuit breaker. You might have heard the term circuit breaker. A homeowner gets to 1%. They don't pay more than 1% unless there's a referendum on top of that. This is different in that it is 10% of the net tax bill or up to $300 max. And so to do some real quick, simple math with that, if you're in a $300,000 home and you're at the 1% cap, $3,000, this credit would be applied after that. So that liability then would be $2,700. And so then if you go above $300,000, you're only going to get the $300. Anything less than that, you get the 10%. That was a pure loss of revenue. However, with the reform of local option income tax, there is the ability to make that up. Not necessarily a library board decision, but there is the ability to raise local option income tax to make up for that potential loss. That loss cuts across all units, and in the local option income tax language, though, it is very specific that schools will not receive local option income tax. There are actually some schools in the state that actually do, in some old counties that were called Cadgett counties, county adjusted gross income tax. Some of those schools were getting lit. That will go away from them. In Hamilton County, we don't have that. We are what's in the original form called Coet County. and schools never did receive a portion of that COIT. However, much different than the other units, that loss cannot be made up. So that was really, then it went very quickly. It came out of the House, it went through both houses and went to the governor's desk right away before the session was even over. And there had been speculation all along that there even might be a special session because they couldn't come to an agreement. But some of the highlights of the property tax reform is really trying to address the impact on the homeowners. In 2023 and 2024, homeowners saw a large increase in their assessments. Many were 20% each year compounded. And obviously that was causing great concern for everyone that property tax increasing at that rate was alarming. So what they put in place is a scale that will increase the supplemental homestead deduction. Currently in 2025, this year, that supplemental homestead deduction is 37.5%. Between now and 2031, that will go to 66.7%. So if you take that $300,000 home, they will only be paying on a net assessed valuation of $100,000, or take a $600,000 home. They will only be paying on $200,000 assessed valuation. So that is going to erase a lot of the tax base that we currently have from homes. In addition to that, they came up with a new deduction for the 2% categories, which is really residential rental property and farm ground. They have not had deductions in the past, but that will start at 6% in 2026. And by the year 2031, that will be 33%. So that too is erasing some of the tax base that's out there right now. They didn't stop there. It wasn't just homeowners that received relief. They also changed the business personal property and who would have to report. And currently it's at $80,000. If you have personal property greater than $80,000, you have to report that. That new number is going to be $2 million. And so there will be a lot of small business personal property that will no longer be reported. They originally had that tiered in. It was originally going to be $1 million in 2026 and then $2 million in 27. But they later then realized they couldn't do that in 26 because everyone had already filed their returns. And they couldn't go back and they didn't have enough time to go back and have everybody refile or unfile. And so they're just making that leap in 2027. So you're going to see some things unique in 2027 that are going to drop that assessed valuation further as a result of that. So those are some of the highlights of the property tax side. And before I go into lit, I want to kind of show you some things about property tax, and then we'll have a deeper conversation about lit because it looks much different than how the current formula works. And so I'm going to go to the fiscal plan, and I'm going to start on page 9. If you're following along, if you're following along on your electronic copy, always add 2 pages to it for the cover and the contents page. So if I say page 9 in a PDF, that would be page 11. So funny math, I know. But so also tonight, after I'm done speaking, this has been advertised as a public hearing. There is no action required of you this evening. It's just to hear information about the budget. And you actually would be asked to adopt the budget on September 18th. So if there's something I say this evening that you have questions about, there's quite a bit of time between now and the time you have to adopt the budget in September. But this is a lot of small numbers, but I just kind of want you to know this is where you start with calculations. This is called the 6-year non-farm personal income. It's been around for many years now. The last time we went through property tax reform, they were looking for a way to not let property tax grow faster than the income of the state. And so that was their thought process. We want property tax to be somewhat in sync with what incomes are doing. However, you can't really see it very well here, but in 2021, if you were I don't know, Molly, if you could zoom that in just a little bit. In 2021, you see this large increase. Oops. Yeah, that's okay. Right. Back a little bit right there. Yeah, you can stop right there. Oops. Back just a little. Sorry. Go just a little bit up there. There you go. Stop right there. That would work. So in 2021, income as a state went up 10%. And that was the year, obviously, there was a lot of federal money pushed out, somewhat of a false sense of what was going on. And that rolled into that 6-year average, driving the 6-year average up more than what they would have otherwise anticipated. And so for the last 3 years now, they've made this calculation, but they've overridden it. In other words, they just said, hey, we're going to make this calculation, but if it's more than 4%, we're not letting you get more than 4%. And so, Molly, if you would go to page 10. This is the calculation for how much property tax you can collect in your general fund. And you can see I've highlighted here that 4% it has been the limit for 2024 and now for 2026. The calculation would actually have produced a lot higher number than that, just living on the 6-year non-farm personal income factor. And for the most part, it doesn't matter where you live in the state, Northwest, South, East. I mean, it doesn't matter where you live. This is the calculation 4%. There is still an ability for a growth appeal, although they eliminated them in 2027 and beyond. We don't quite qualify for that. So we're going to be limited to that 4% like most are. Right now, that is as far as the legislation takes us, and it would take us back to the 6-year non-farm personal income factor in 2027, but don't count on it. Everything they're doing right now has been trying to limit property tax. And it's very unlikely they're going to allow us to suddenly go back to that factor when everything they've done in the last session is to limit it. So that's how the law is currently written right now. But I would say in the next legislative session, it's going to be a short session, but that will be probably one thing that they address and try to change. So if you would go to page 8, Molly, this says valuation. So this is certified now. So many counties are not certified. Hamilton County is fortunate that we're ahead of that game and it is certified. Now, it came in at 4.65%. That's actually not that bad. Because of all this property tax reform, we still saw growth. There's not a ton of change in 26. The only change in the assessment in 26 was that we're going from a 37.5% deduction to a 40%. It's after that, starting in 27, it goes from 40 to 46, and then from 46 to 52. And so, so we actually grew more than 4.65% because that accounts for that higher supplemental homestead deduction. But what I want to point out is what the model looks like in the future. You can see that the assessed valuation, instead of going up, even though we're growing, the assessed value is going to start going down because, one, the business personal property, two, all these deductions start jumping up much higher. And so that first year is a little higher because of the business personal property, but then you're going to lose each year thereafter until the year 2031. And that's going to affect tax rates. You're going to see tax rates go up across the state. For the last 6 years, Hamilton East Library's rate has gone down. It has gone down every year because of the growth. But in the future, you're going to see here in a minute that is going to change. And so this negative is really a result of Senate Bill 1. So Molly, if you would go to tax rates, and that's on page 7. So what that will do to tax rate. So right now, you can see this is your history on tax rates going back to 2020. Your tax rate has decreased every year since that year, and even decreased in 25, and it's going to go down again in 26. But then you can see, you look at the percentage increases there. If our levies go up, and that, this assumes 5.5%. If it went up 5.5% and your assessed valuation is going down 5%, it's causing almost a 10% increase in the tax rate. Although you're not collecting any more for debt, and you're only collecting 4% more in your maximum levy, that rate is going to go up substantially. I think that might be one thing that the state might be shocked by as time progresses, how fast all the tax rates are going to increase. And we're going to have to change the conversation starting next year, not about the tax rate, which has always been our conversation. It will be more of a levy conversation. We'll be telling the community, say, all right, we need this much more levy. We need 4% more levy for our general fund. We don't need any more money for our debt fund. But we're not the ones to decide who pays or how it's calculated, but we're telling you as a community how much more we need in terms of real dollars to operate. So it will change from a rate conversation to a levy conversation. I have some of that built in here now as we get into your numbers. Local option income tax, page 16. So this, first I'm going to start off with a little bad news, in that we do have our certified amount for 2026, and that for Hamilton County only came in at 2.7% increase. That's really low for our county, especially when I look around at the surrounding counties. And I can't sit here and say that this is wrong, but it doesn't make sense of why it's that low. Hancock County was 11.7%. Johnson County was 4.5%. Marion County was over 5%. Madison County was 6%. And so Hamilton County has been certified at 2.7%, and it just doesn't look right on the surface. It might be a timing issue of returns. I have emailed the Department of Revenue as of today, just questioning, like, hey, we're not saying this is wrong. We're not accusing of anybody of anything, but can you shed some light on this? Because our neighbors are seeing much larger increases in the local option income tax. I've actually been down this path three times in my career. This has happened before. It later gets adjusted, but we're not going to be able to work with anything but this number for now for our budgets. This is what's been certified. This is where things are going to change a lot. So this on the far left column is the rate. In Hamilton County, we have a rate of 1.1% for local option income tax. 1% of it is collected and allocated to all the units within the county based on property tax levy. And schools do not receive any of that. And so that's been the formula for many, many years. I mean, it started back in 1973. And now some of those some inequities are coming out of that. That formula is going to change in the year 2028. We currently operate in Hamilton County with what's called a lit council, which the vote is made up of the municipalities in the county based on population. The county actually doesn't control it. When you look at the percentage vote the county has, it's only a little better than 6%. Because you think of the unincorporated areas, there's not as much population anymore. They used to be the big player making a decision like that, but now Carmel and Fishers and Noblesville and Westfield, they have all the percentage vote. It always takes two of them to make any decision to change that. That goes away starting in 2027. And the county council will now be the body that will make a decision on how much lit will be collected for libraries. They will impose a lit rate for themselves. They have up to 1.2%. That is an enormous amount of capacity for them. They will very, very unlikely to use even half of that. but they have a large capacity there. They also have the ability to adopt a 0.4% rate for fire and EMS. And then they have 0.2% for what's called non-municipal units. And you are a non-municipal unit. And so that bucket is for essentially the library, the township, and solid waste. And no one group can have more than 0.05. And so that would be the maximum rate right now that they can adopt for the library. I'm going to show you the results of that here in a minute. But no longer, though, whatever they decide to collect for the libraries, will that be distributed on property tax levy? It will be distributed on population. And that is a much different model. And there will be winners and losers in that model. You actually end up benefiting from that because of your population being so broad between Noblesville and Fishers. And I'm going to show you that math here in a minute too. But just know that that change is coming, and the county council will have to make a decision sometime between July 1, 2027 and on October 1st, 2027 for it to be effective in 2028. So we will be operating under the old model for 2026 and the old model for 2027. And as scheduled right now, this could change in the next legislative session, but as of right now, that would be the new model. Another huge change is municipalities greater than 3,500 will be responsible for adopting their own lit rate. And that might be a bit political in that, you know, we have 4 large communities and we may not have the same rate in each of those, right? The same rate doesn't generate the same amount of money, but that will be interesting to see play out. I think most people will just be trying to adopt a rate that will replace what they're currently receiving, but that would potentially produce different rate results in that. But those are significant changes to local option income tax going forward. You have always been responsible to the Hamilton County Council as the fiscal body, but now they will also be your body for adopting the lit rate. There are still some problems with lit, not so much for you in that sense, but the lit also has to be adopted annually. And bondholders, there are revenue bonds issued by municipalities and counties. They call it revenue bonds. They pledge their lit. The bondholders wouldn't feel super secure knowing the rate could change every year. And so there's some issues that I think the state legislature is going to have to address a little further. So expect a lot of chatter again next session. It's going to be a short session, but in my mind, it's going to be very active. Won't be as long as the last one, but there's still going to be a lot of conversation trying to fine tune it. Now, Representative Thompson has been on record saying the framework's there. Don't expect the framework to change. We'll be adjusting and tweaking, but don't expect that the system that we just adopted is going out the window. So know that. So I'm going to show you first some percentages so you have a comparison. So Molly, if you go to page 14, this is an official number now. Your lit has been certified as of Monday this week. I mean, I literally just got this number. And your percentage is 1.7%. You were 1.8% of the pie. You are now 1.7. I had always forecasted you would go to 1.7. That might be a little quicker. We do have Noblesville and Noblesville and Westfield that qualify for growth appeals. And so their levies are going up faster than yours. If yours is going up 4%, theirs could be going up 10%. That draws more lit with them. And there was also a pretty significant change with the city of Fishers in that how they got to calculate their levy into the lit allocation. They were able to pull some of their debt levies into that to get a little more equalization in there. And so if you were just looking at that, Fishers is now 15.6% of the pie. And Carmel's at 23.9 and Noblesville's at 13.9. So you actually saw increases in the lit for Noblesville and Westfield because of growth, the growth appeals, and Fishers was because of a piece of legislation that adjusted their levies. And so an important number to look at is right here for right now, the libraries receive 3.8% of the lit. So think about that a minute. We currently have a rate of 1%. The maximum rate they can adopt for libraries is 5. Okay, that's the maximum. Will they adopt only enough to replace that 3.8% for the libraries, or will they go to the max to try to make people more full? And so that might be what they try to do. So I don't want to speculate on that, but I would guess that will be part of the conversation. And to be real frank, I'm guessing they'll be looking at, cash reserves and things of that nature of how much cash do you have? Do you really need 0.05? And so, but that will be a conversation that will probably start next year because they have to make a decision by the summer of 27. So with that said, so keep in mind, we're 1.7% of the pie. We're currently getting 4.5 million, and the Carmel Library is 1.6%, and they're currently getting 4.3. Okay, so keep those two numbers in mind because you're going to see a pretty significant difference in that going forward. Go to page 18, Molly. So this is the new formula. If the county council would agree to adopt up to 0.05 rate, that would generate about $15 million. So that becomes the number that would be allocated among the libraries. Then it goes to a population-based number. And so that's where the big shift happens, is because when you look at Carmel at 99,000 people, and you look at 180,000 people in Hamilton East, you can see what the numbers do. Carmel gets close to being whole under the 0.05, but if they were to adopt 0.05 for you, your portion would go from 4.5 million to 7.8 million. That is a significant change. I would tell you the Library Association themselves will probably find themselves in conflict with this because it's a zero-sum game. It's going to produce winners and losers. There's going to be people that love this idea, and there's going to be people that hate this idea. These things happen. They're all over the place, all over the state. And so, but it has been changed again to a population-based distribution model. The same is true with townships. They will have up to 0.05. They're percent. They're a similar percentage as a whole. They too will be distributed in population going forward. So significant changes there, but expect a lot of conversation about that in the next session. I don't know if that will hold or not, but that's how the law is currently written. So with all that said, property tax reform, big lit changes. What's that mean? What's it look like to us? And so let's go to page 1. So you'll actually see how these numbers play out for you. First at the top here, I have a box highlighted to show you that the new property tax credit that I described, the new homeowner credit, the general fund I'm estimating would be about a loss of about $231,000. There's also going to be a loss in the debt fund of this credit. Circuit breaker, which is different than credit, is all applied to your general fund. No credit can be lost in the debt fund. I think that was a miss on their part, and they're going to change to the next session. And so I think this is a real number for 26 being forecasted at 231. So you're seeing in a moment how much I'm estimating to lose in the debt fund. And it's likely that is going to get moved to the general fund. I'm speculating. So just know, so that's a pure loss of revenue to the library. And then here, if you look at this line I just described in the lid, you can see I'm forecasting that if the county council would adopt 0.05, your lit jumped substantially in that year from where we currently are. Now on the expenditure side, I always project our budget is such that we have what I would describe as an advertised adopted budget, and then we have a working budget. And so this is we've always adopted high, and we really then try to spend to the revenue. However, this year, because our cash balances are very strong, we're in a very strong cash position. That could work against us, right? When we're trying to establish a lit rate. And so we are trying to address some projects of need with some of that cash this year. And so I know you've all been discussing those projects, but I'm showing that that we're really going to try to spend all the budget that we had this year, and that would drop the cash by $2.8 million. If we spend the full budget, we'll drop the cash by $2.8 million. And that still leaves you with $10 million of cash in the operating fund. That is a very strong cash balance. I always tell clients, if you have 50% of your next year's property tax in your balance, in this case, maybe $2.8 million, that's a strong cash balance. That gets you from property tax settlement. That gets you from January to your property tax settlements. We're well above that at this point. So, going forward, forecasting forward, we were starting to look at some potential deficits there, but you can see how that deficit goes away immediately and turns into a gain if that were to occur and under those conditions. So there's some bad news and there's some good news, right? And there's some planning. And what I've been telling most of my clients, because they have good cash balances. Yes, Senate Bill 1 is making a lot of changes. The good news for you is you're in a strong enough cash position. You do not have to take a knee-jerk reaction to anything. Okay, we're going to potentially have to react, and we're going to have to work with the other libraries to work with the county council to adopt a rate. But just know that you're in a strong cash position to kind of weather a lot of the change that has just happened. If you go to the next page, Molly. So I wouldn't normally talk about this a lot, but this is your debt fund, okay? And you see this line I highlighted in here too. There's another $127,000 lost to that credit that I described. That potentially would end up back in the general fund. Not a huge amount, but nevertheless, it's another potential loss to the general fund. The DLGF is in their calculations, in their budget process, has stated they are not going to recognize that loss. They will calculate the budget without the loss. And so you have to have enough operating balance here at the end of the year to absorb that loss. We do, okay? Now, if they don't change it, what will happen is our cash balances will drop in the debt fund, and the next year our levy rate would go up. But don't count on that. I think that was something that's going to change. But this is where I referred to the levy conversation a while ago. So look, just for modeling purposes, I said, all right, well, let's just assume the levy is going to remain flat. When we go for the debt, that we're going to, and this was always our plan, when we go for the debt, that we would not ask for any more property tax dollars. And so I ran that model out just to show you that, all right, if that ends up being our levy and we just continue to collect that, how much surplus will we have? And you can see we got almost $1.3 million surplus in that debt fund. But what you would see if we go back to the rate page, Molly, if you would go back to page 7. On the rate page, look what happens. Even though we're collecting the exact same amount of dollars, this year our debt rate is going down from 0.0175 to 0.0166. But next year it goes up to 0.0175 without collecting a dollar more. If you follow that. So our timeline calls for the conversation to start with you in late December this year on the new location. And how our surplus really starts to begin in 2029, but we have a balance in what's called BIRF, Bond Improvement Reserve Fund. It was when we did the last bond issue, there were premiums paid into that, and it was there if we ever had a rate increase, but we've not had a rate increase. Our rate continues to decline. We've never had to use that money. And so we will be able to use that BIRF account to issue the bonds sooner and use those dollars to pay it until we get to 2028 when the capacity frees up, when one of our bonds pays off. So that's how we'll bridge that gap. So one last thing, page 5. This is the rainy day fund. Again, we had budgeted quite a bit of money in this fund, but we really haven't spent much out of it. We're trying to spend the general fund dollars. But we have about $4.6 million in the budget for next year. And I don't know that we'll spend any of that, but it is appropriate if you need to start a project sooner than when you issue the bond. You could use that for cash flow and then reimburse yourself from that. So if you need to progress quicker than what we could get the bond issued, as long as we're through all the approvals. And that would also include what's called a bond reimbursement resolution that you do at the front end of your bond, so that if you do start expending dollars, then you can reimburse yourself. So it's not uncommon to use the rainy day fund for cash flow, but if you spent money, then it would just come back in. Then when you issue the bonds, you reimburse yourself. So, in summary, you are in a strong cash position. There are changes coming that we've got to work through. 2026 is not all that different than 2025. The big things start to happen in 27 and 28. And that's where we'll have a lot of conversations between now and then. So my part was not the public hearing. So the next step would be to have a public hearing, open up for comment. I'd be happy to take any questions from the board.
I have one on the rainy day fund.
Sure.
What is the significant difference between budget 25 and budget 26 in that balance?
Why is it going up? This is just showing if you spent it all, you would. So in 23, 25, we are not planning to spend all that budget. But in 26, we have it all appropriated. If you spend it, if you spend it all, you'd only have $900,000 left. I don't think you're going to do that. I don't think you're going to have the need, but it would be available for you to do that. So you're limited to a 4% increase in your total budget overall. And so that's our starting point when we build the budget. It gets back to that advertised adopted budget versus the working budget. Melissa has a working budget and targets that she's trying to spend to the revenue, or in this case, trying to spend some of that cash down. The advertised budget is much higher than anticipated. And so we work backwards from that 4%, so you don't have to go to the county council to get your budget approved. And so that puts you in a nice position to always be able to just adopt your budget without having to go through a binding review.
Other questions from Mike?
Sorry, maybe a little longer presentation than normal, but there's a lot packed into that little conversation. I can tell you it's been a stressful year.
All right. Then at this point, I will recess our normal monthly meeting and we'll take us into the call to order the public hearing for the 2026 library budget. So we're opening the public hearing at this time. This is the Hampton East Public Library for the public hearing on the year 2026 budget. Bill, I see you arrived and you stayed out there because you didn't want to interrupt Mike, and I appreciate that, but get up here, man. Okay. All right, having called it to order, our first order of business in the public hearing on the 2026 library budget is reading of rates and levies. Melissa.
For 2026, the proposed advertised budget for the Hamilton East Public Library and the rainy day fund, the budget estimate is $4,582,508 with no associated levy. For the general fund, the proposed budget is $14,362,887 with a maximum estimated levy of funds to be raised from property taxes of $5,652,198, which would correspond to the rates not to exceed 0.0335. For the lease rental payment, the budget estimate is $3,113,100 with a maximum levy of $3,374,447, corresponding to a rate not to exceed 0.020. The Library Improvement Reserve Fund has a budget of $0. There is no levy associated with that fund, for a total estimated budget of $22,058,499.
Good. At this point, it's public comment on the 2026 budget. Are there public comments? I'm seeing a no. Anybody change their mind and says, hey, I really want to talk about the 2026 budget? Here's your changes. All right, then at this time, I'll close the public hearing on the year 2026 budget with the hearing to consider adoption of that budget set for Thursday, September 18th, 2025, at 6:15 at our Fishers branch located at 5 Municipal Drive in Fishers. So let's come back. I know, let's shuffle our chairs around and come back again as our normal board and call the monthly meeting back into order. Our quorum remains. We are a full board of 7 again. And we are into our consent agenda. Are there any items of the consent agenda to be removed? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'm going to approve.
Michelle is moved. Kim is seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda passes, and we are on to Oleo Road expansion projects. Melissa, can you give us a thumbnail of what's going on and see who we might need to hear from?
Sure. So we did have Kevin Montgomery here from KRM to talk to us a little bit. Just a quick overview is that the property that we own at 15100 Oleo is going to be impacted by the Oleo Road expansion, and the city needs to acquire a that to expand the road for all of this stuff.
So to about our neighbor.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I will not be sound near as far as Mike, but maybe a little bit more interesting here, at least at the beginning.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, sorry, I put the small projects first. I had your agenda backwards. So if we jump, we've begun working. We had conversations about programming on the interior of the library, and we're meeting with the library along with some community interest groups, leadership from the city of Noblesville. But we also found out that the city is asking for this kind of frontage flight. So we accelerated a little bit. These are very simple preliminary diagrams just to demonstrate how much is that ask from the city and how does it affect your your property and your project potentially. So there was a couple quick studies, 1 and 2 here, but essentially both of them show in that purple hat to the right the approximate land that it would be purchased by the city for that Oleo Road project. You can see kind of on the layer beneath the satellite image, paralleled by those 2 dotted lines, is the existing Oleo Road that runs nearly due north-south. So it's being widened and widened more in the direction of your property in this area for, the reasons that cities and engineering have, acquiring property, topographics, drainage, and those items. And we've met with Jim from city engineering to walk through several of those items. So they're requesting, again, this 1.1 or 1.2 acres. There's also a utility easement for power that's in place now along the road. That easement would move back to the edge of the right of way again. So, they take a piece of land, the easement moves back, which is that second dotted line. So, it moves us a little bit further, leaving you with the 8.8 acres in red as your property. And the area past the easement as your true usable space. The footprint shown there in bright blue of the library is 32,000 square feet. You know, again, we're not through that exercise of figuring out how big exactly it'll be, but it's going to be in that range. That gives you a sense of scale there. About 160 car parking lot plus or minus. That's a good size that matches that size building right now. And then you can see, you know, the amount of space that we still have. Stormwater is likely going to be in that upper right corner if we want to, you know, minimize costs and use natural grade and an inlet that is coming in with the road project in kind of the upper half of your site on the street project where we get tie in. So assuming those, you know, early assumptions hold true, you know, you're still left with quite a bit of space on the property. There's some placeholders to the west side right now, you know, open green space, potentially an outdoor play area. And then you'll see on this one on the upper left, you know, even still leftover remaining space to explore with community partnerships or have the flexibility on your property for needs in the future. There's already, you know, expansion space shown at the library's footprint there and that an additional patch. So, you know, overall, if you combine that, that's a roughly 50,000 square foot building surrounded by some nice outdoor spaces and enough parking. So, you know, the land, you know, you have enough property to accommodate what the city is asking for. We believe and still reach all the goals that you know desire for the Holyoke Road branch. Molly, if you flip one more, it's simply just you know, we're going to continue to go through these site arrangement exercises as we learn more about what happens in the building and we start to study the architecture and views for the project. But you know, this one shifts the you know potential community partner project or you know, future project further up on the site and really makes more of a community focused, you know, front half where you'd have a lot of energy. You could have pathways that come onto the site and, you know, reduce the impact of kind of a large field of parking and put the parking mostly kind of back of the lot, which we really like the energy that would create kind of at that entrance and gateway. But again, lots of to be determined, work to begin.
So if I may,
Yes, please.
the city has actually sent a formal offer to the library. It is the first step in a condemnation action. So one way or another, they intend to acquire that hatched area from you. Condemnation actions are not unfamiliar to me. We had a very cordial meeting with permission from the city's attorney, who I know quite well. And we all went over to the city engineering office and had them explain to us more of why they needed so much, why it wasn't straight, explain a little bit more about their project, what they were doing, what was going on around it. We've also looked at the appraisal, which they provided with their formal offer. I will say that I'm not convinced that their appraisal is what you should accept. I'll say that since we're being recorded. But you could authorize us to go out and hire an appraiser, spend money, get a secondary appraiser. They might get another appraiser. And I'm going to suggest to you at this juncture that that's probably not the route that should be taken. I think there are a lot of opportunities to be taken as these folks are helping you plan that. There's some things that the city could do as a part of their road improvements. They can put cuts in the road so people can do left and right hand turns into your driveway, wherever that driveway is going to be. They can do, curb cuts already out there for you. There's some other things that they can do, which may not be the right terms, but I'm gonna use my plain English and say just some other site improvements that they can do for you that may lessen your project costs ultimately, that may be more cost efficient for them to include in their project cost now for them, and may allow us to come to term. And so what I would suggest that you all do is refer the matter to Building and Grounds. Let all of these really smart people continue to come up with a list. I think Kevin has already put some items down on a wish list, if you will. I have a few items on a wish list, but all of you should think, if I were in charge, and send emails individually to Building and Grounds of what you think the city might be able to do in addition to the cash that they are offering, which I think is too low, but what else could they do to sweeten the pot, if you will, that might not cost them as much, but would help you as you move forward with it?
So that the meeting we had with the city, and so Melissa and Matt and Veritas, Kevin, and I was invited to be there, and not having worked in that sphere at all, I was impressed with the amount of thought that goes into designing roads, designing libraries, just all of that. And we say all let the smart people figure this out. Yes, and I completely agree. But I also completely agree that the number is too low, but we are also in this oddly fortuitous moment where we are already thinking about what this property should look like, already thinking about our future to the point that had Oily Road been expanded 3 years ago, we would not have been in a place to say, hey, let's talk about cuts, let's talk about turn lanes and medians and that, but we are at that juncture now, and I think it's appropriate to have us at the table thinking through these things. And so from my perspective, having seen this and read through materials, it seems I understood them other than to know that that amount of money seems low. I like that plan that Ann has put out there. I will just again say, if we do go that route, send your thoughts individually, not in a all mass email, and send it. I will volunteer the chair of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. We go with that plan to receive those emails, and for Buildings and Grounds to talk through that. I think that makes a lot.
And I also don't think it's appropriate for us to announce this to you in one board meeting. And even though there's incredibly smart people that do this work for you, to give you some suggestions and say, now vote. I think you ought to have the ability to think about that, send the email, let Buildings and Grounds digest it some more and come back to you with recommendations. And we did ask the city for an extension, and they have agreed to extend it beyond the next meeting, although they fussed a little bit, and I gave them the same reason. Do you really want us to just present it to them once and, then me come back and say, fine, sue it? I mean, because that's the next step, is you say no because it's too low and we're gonna go out and get another appraiser, and they say, no, you had to accept it tonight. Really, we're gonna go to court already? That's silly. So you deserve time for thoughtful consideration.
Other thoughts and discussion or motions to be had?
That's something that's a separate issue, just having gone through the whole bleak future of our revenue coming in. Is that going to affect our operating cash for staffing another branch.
Well, yes, I mean, because we don't get any more money for when we added her grant, we don't get it. So but we have been making adjustments to our budget. That each year we're setting aside money that we will use on one-time projects. And then, but once we are ready to open and operate that we have that money set aside, that we're not expecting to use it for our regular operations of the current building. So that way we are ready to absorb it.
Kind of that difference between advertised and adopted versus. No, that's a fair question. Other thoughts about the Holy Road improvement project? And how that affects us? Our trail system nearby? Not on the Holy Road. There is on Bowden, miles to the west. But I think some of the plans that are going in the large development that's going on, that's planned right across the street. There's potential for a lot of mixed use and trails and sort of thing. And that can all be part of the discussion and how it can fit into RV stop on the trail sort of thing. It should be. All right. So
A motion to refer the matter to buildings and grounds might be appropriate if you agree.
discussion on motions.
Motion to, move it to building and grounds and like email on.
Who's made that motion? We refer it to anything?
And
I heard Michelle before I saw Bill. And motion second discussion on referring this to building and grounds and bringing this back to the full board later for decision.
Does that mean we're gonna vote on it next?
I think timing wise, we kind of need to, timing that the city's already frustrated with us. They like us or public body,
Then
they understand.
we send out the buildings and grounds committee comes up with recommendations. Can we send that out before the board meeting to the other board members? Okay,
The report, yeah,
so that you would have time to review that before the board.
right. Yeah, but I think the anticipation is the city would need something from us in that September meeting.
But there would be time to discuss it. You'll get the recommendations before that board meeting. You have time to read, digest, and then we can discuss it at the next board meeting. And then any final decisions on what would go into that would have to next. So if you want to make any suggested changes or.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions about the motion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed by nay? That motion passes. Craig will put an email, and after the meeting, we'll get a building ground meeting scheduled. All right. Next item, can we step ahead, small project update?
Yeah, sorry about that. So we've been working pretty quickly through the small projects list, and we've also the library and has brought on Myron Asian as the CM. I think that happened at your last meeting. So we've been onboarding them as well, and we're trying to get work underway as soon as possible. So a lot of this can be complete towards the end of the year. So this is our design update that we've been working through over the last 6 weeks, focused on more of, I guess, again, design items. There are a lot of small infrastructure repair work scattered throughout as well that I won't necessarily touch on just for time. So overall plan of Fisher here, you see a few colored highlighted areas, again, largely focused in the children area. So we're just going to jump to a summary of each area. So the first one is the play area before you enter the program rooms. Yep. So the kind of woodland theme of the children's area takes on shape here with more of a semi-enclosed space for the play zone. If you're there, around story time, you'll see, how many kids can pack into this type of space. This gives them a much more engaging space, more interactives, but also a semi-private space knock some of that sound down, provide more comfortable seating or seating in general for the parents, overseeing their kiddos, introduces the computer stations right there. So when you have the 6-year-old along with your 2-year-old, you're not split across the entire department. And overall provides a lot more exciting and dynamic space, especially through furnishings and fixtures such as lights and again, interactive performance. Next slide comes to the entrance of the space. And when you go there now, it's actually really dimly lit and doesn't have any access to the windows, and it's all painted gray. So introducing a new ceiling feature, brightening the space up, and also taking that opportunity to use lighting to really engage the kiddos. There's some really simple things we can do as that light comes through, create some shapes that can be changed out throughout the year. The middle image there shows kind of the dappling of light. It's just done through a lay-in metal ceiling. And to the right will be a kind of a feature display area with a little pause, sit-down space. Also engaging that column that kind of is dead center as you walk through the space with a quick touchdown finish area. And as you continue straight through that spine, you pretty much kept walking as you walked in that main entrance, you get to more of the kind of family zone, a little bit bigger kiddos. So a mix of tall and low seating, feature display, new book circulation. This area, the green is actually representative of peeling back the ceiling tiles just in this zone. It's a really big department and it's a consistent plane of ceiling tiles all the way across. So this will really be a simple way to create a dynamic change in ceiling plane, and then use lighting to add another pop. And then you're seeing kind of a little bit of colored glazing that is going to allow that sun to bounce through and kind of play with light as it comes into the spaces throughout the morning hours. And again, really draw people throughout the space rather than them all traveling kind of right into the play zone. We're going to define multiple areas of interest. And then kind of along those lines, pulling some of the, especially bigger kids, down to the south area. You have a main entrance there into the meeting rooms if you come in that east hallway, and you don't really realize that it's going to be this really dynamic children's space right on the other side of that wall. So the wall stays, and just working within the existing storefront to introduce some pops of interest. Again, kind of reading nook areas that replaces the unused shelving that's there. More seating opportunities. So again, trying to get people to gather throughout the space rather than just in one location. Here's some of the real high function work that needed to be done around 3 service points throughout the 2 libraries. So the first is a new desk at the children's area. Right now, it's really a workstation. It's a spot for one to sit, not highly efficient workstation. So there'll be able to be 2 staff members at efficient desk. They can do work while they man the desk, still be backed by the staff area directly behind them, but introduces more storage, a lot of function applied to this design. And then the next slide. So as we move out of the children's area into the lobby of Fisher's, and we're moving the reference or service point there in the middle out of the space, which you'll see the desk on the next slide. But this one, we're introducing a furniture package that will more appropriately fill the space, provide additional study space, small group gathering. You can see some small telephone booth type settings. So, that demand for small conversations, interactions, and meetings, informal, to spill out and not just book all of your study rooms continuously, will be met by some of the furniture. And then if we jump to the new desk, again, much safer, much more effective, used for your staff. We'll have 3 stations for staff members and direct access into the workroom and additional staff behind them, more collaboration. It also introduces display space, holds area and the library of things collection will now easily be able to be staffed at one location. Right there, you see kind of some inspiration images of kind of the level of finish for those displays and that's the material palette is just pretty simple and a little bit warmer than what's there now, but also picks up on some of the existing conditions. Then we're doing a similar scope of work at the Noblesville Library, and that's one of the real main parts of the project at Noblesville. There's much less work in Noblesville in general. So this desk will happen just to the right instead of dead center as you walk in. Similarly, if you think about, across from the restrooms, where they're now, I guess. So right outside, you can kind of locate yourself with the column that is shown with the welcome sign right now. That existing column is out there today. So again, essentially three stations if needed, one self checkout, similar programming to what's at the Fisher. Quick summary. Good questions.
I think that our next, we're working on getting, Meyer Nature, we're working on getting finalized, designs so that we can start getting, bids.
Yeah, so the documents are supposed to go out to bid for subs September 9th and have about a 2 to 3 week bidding period. So I think we worked that out with the timing of the board meeting that follows about a week after that, where Meyer Nation would come and present a guaranteed max price.
Which actually we wanted to see, and we can discuss this after the meeting, we wanted to see if we could do a special meeting on October 2nd, so that, because we'd like to get, at that meeting, we would have pricing for you to approve so that we can start moving forward with the project. Is that correct? Should I have those things right? Yeah, okay.
Colin, I love the Fisher's Common here. That looks so much better built out. Right now, it's
Big, yeah.
October 6th.
Yeah. Let's do the same time.
clear.
So I just want to tell you that we did involve, we had a lot of, the staff were involved in a lot of these. They provided a lot of feedback, and so a lot of these designs and drawings were driven by what they have identified as the needs, and then we've really enjoyed working with KRM because I think that what they've come back is just beautiful and really takes into consideration all of the things that the staff have identified, and there's practical considerations, but I think it really just finally gives that space the honor that it deserves in this library. It's really the only area that wasn't really fully revamped in urban.
You anticipate a lot of downtime of areas, or is it going to be concentrated to try and minimize them?
Yeah, we definitely had that in the RFP with the CM and continue to convey that you're going to go through shop drawings and get all your material basically stored and your subs lined up. You get the area, and it better be one after another, and it's reopened. So they're working on their phasing plan as well. They're not going to close the children's, take it all over. It's going to be piece by piece. But they say that they'll move quickly.
Yeah, that was the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Just if you're like Iron Age, right? So last meeting, just to make sure we recall, we had supported and empowered Buildings and Grounds Committee to interview, and then as time of in essence just move forward with whomever we recommended. And that question was very much talked about. our patrons are sick and tired of not being able to get to things because of construction what they call it construction fatigue. And so, yes, the committee represented you well.
And I will say too, so one advantage of Meyer Nathan, they are across the trail from us on at Fisher's. So they had a front row seat to everything that went wrong in previous times and commented on it even. So they know and they understand that this is really important to us together.
My neighbor worked.
Definitely excited to get finalists and
Anything else you need from us, Kevin?
Nope.
Exciting to see it. Can't wait to see it himself.
Yeah.
Any other small projects update? Also, I think we're good in time.
Anything else we need to do that?
All right. Next item is administrator's executive recommendation regarding the study room and computer chair replacement.
So the study room chairs and computer chairs are 20 years old and they are heavily used chairs and they, a lot of them are broken. Most of them are stained. And so we would like to replace them. We did bring, we worked with business furniture and they brought out options. We looked at them. We worked with Amber in our public services, and the option we that was chosen was it's a higher quality chair. You know, getting 20 years out of most chairs is pretty good. So we don't want to replace them with something that's going to break down easily. So we want something that's a higher quality. That is the chair that was recommended. We do with the amount of chairs, we do get some discounted quantity purchasing, and then also some government purchasing.
the chairs we're talking about.
Is it like like 160 or something like that? Is that right? Am I making
160 or 170. Okay, so it's a normal.
Yeah, it's throughout, it's all of the computer labs, all of the study rooms, children's and adult in those buildings.
Any other discussion or motions?
Make a motion to approve the administrator's executive recommendation for replacement of the chairs.
Craig made a motion, is there a second? Heard that first. Any discussion on the motion to approve the AER? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay? That carries. Get us some chairs. Next item is AER Administrator's Executive Recommendation for minivan for staff use. Oh,
So, currently we have the outreach van, which is a specialized van. It has 2 chairs in the front for a driver and passenger, and then the back is special cargo stuff. And then we have a transit van, which also doesn't have any seats in the back. So we would like to request a minivan so that when we send staff to conferences, they can travel in one. When we send staff out to like field trips, you know, recently there was the INSERC conference that was up in Anderson, and so everybody's taking separate cars. If we have a minivan, we could send people in one. It would also be used for staff to run errands or to go to do. We have the outreach team who drive the outreach van, but we have a lot of our other staff who do outreach. So this would be a branded van. Likely would do a similar wrap to what we have on the outreach van that was from the Wilkinson brothers. So then that would also be, you know, just advertising when we're out and identifying staff. So I'd like to request purchasing one. We did discuss having one at each building, but I think I'd like to start with one and just see how the usage goes. And then if we identify that there's a need, we would come back and ask. So we reached out to several. We wanted to use a local car dealer. So we reached out to several and got some quotes, and this was recommended based on pricing and then also just the quality of the vehicle.
questions? Comments, motion?
How much in mileage are we at? Which would require.
Well, it would depend. I mean, the mileage is listed in the APB. So it does it'll show the mileage. So, but we are paying quite a bit in mileage. several hundred each month, I would say. So I don't know if it replaces all of that, but it would replace some of that. And then it would also, when we have the ILS conference, or we do send staff out on field trips to go look at their, go examine other libraries, like I know correct, that would allow them to travel together.
Insurance and requirements to drive it.
Yeah, so we would have, it would be on the library's insurance. Kim, I don't know if you can hear me, but I don't know. We'd have to get a quote for insurance policy.
How does that work with multiple drivers?
At the school, we have a policy to drive the vans, like a training, it's like a 2-hour training and they. We have an existing policy, since we have the transit and the outreach.
We did,
As far as who can,
yeah.
yes, well, I think you have to like submit your driver's license, like basic things like that. None of the vehicles require any advanced licensing. So that has never been a requirement.
That could be, if we wanted to pass, create a policy of, like, have to be a certain age or have to have, submit, I know some libraries you have to submit, they do check your driving history. So, I mean, if you want, we could do that before we would start having staff driving.
For a rental car, you have to be 21, 25, 25.
Yeah, most clients I have, they're like leads have a pretty robust policy about how you can use them, who can use them.
Yeah, we can definitely draft up a policy and.
It's probably a good idea for liability, right?
Mhm.
And you could write into the policies.
We have a draft that we don't have that. So yeah, we can absolutely bring that, specify who can drive it. And what the library needs from them, because I think right now it's just a copy of their driver's license. Or codification.
And looking at the last couple of APBs, yeah, a few $100 every month that we're paying.
So we'll place some of that, we'll place that and get some advertising out of it.
We like, one timeline could be if we go ahead and purchase it and then bring the policy because it'll take a little bit of time for it to get wrapped as well. So, but then not have staff use it before we have the policy.
That works. All right, any other discussion on this AR and any motions?
Car for the van.
Motion is second, any discussion?
Do we need to amend that to say pending a policy?
Better not be used. And so approving the AER, but it not be used until our policies in place for. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. AER is approved. Next order of business. You stood up, you knew he was Lisa. Finally, get up.
Pay attention. Yeah, well, we've got great news, and by the next meeting, we will have been launched to the foundation. We've picked September 15th as our launch date, right in the middle of library card sign-up month, and we've got some special activities planned in the lobbies for those that day. We are currently in the process of listing some pre-launch matching funds, so hopefully on our launch, we can announce that we'll have a set of funds that we hope to match in the first month. And then we elected one more board member, so we are now up to 12 board members. They are all really excited. We had just an energetic board meeting earlier this month. We now have 6 functioning committees with our board, which consists of financial, board development, the executive committee, an individual giving committee, a corporate and sponsorship committee, a grants committee, and then we have an ad hoc committee that's just helping plan the launch. So things are happening, and starting next month, I'll be able to tell you about dollar reports. So that'll be exciting. So anyone have any questions? All right. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Next item is director's report. Melissa.
So we wrapped up summer reading and it was a really fun summer. It was a fun theme. Some themes are more fun than others. And so this one was Color Our World, which is a very artsy inspired theme. And there were a lot of really great programs. And I know the staff is exhausted, especially the services. It is you hit the ground running and you don't stop sprinting until it wraps up. So they did a great job with programs and just handling the crowds. I mean, there were some of when we were talking with the architects, I would make them go see how crowded and busy our play area was because it was active all summer. So, so we did, I just want to say staff did a really great job and we're really appreciative of their efforts. We have been doing some network infrastructure upgrades. So, hopefully that we know we have issues with a little bit of Wi-Fi spottiness, but also with our printing, and we are hoping that these upgrades will alleviate some of the headaches that our staff have to deal with and patrons have to deal with for printing issues. So far, it's been going pretty slowly, and so we hope that the rest of the work will go as well. One exciting announcement is that online card registration is coming. So this is something that we get requests for all the time. So staff are doing training on it right now, and we will be launching that in September. And so that work, people will be able to apply online. It'll either get their approval, or they'll get notified that they need to come in and see if there's some issue with it. They'll get notified that they need to come in and see it. So that will be coming soon. Also, we are very excited that the furniture's arrived for the makerspace of it that's going to be going in here in Noblesville. I'm really excited. Megan has done a really good job. Megan is in charge of our makerspace areas, and she's done a really good job of selecting things. So this space is not going to be like a repeat of what we have in Fisher. It's more it's different equipment. Some of it is sort of the next step up of the capabilities of the stuff we offer in Fisher. So because it's a smaller area, we can't exactly replicate what we have in Fisher. So we wanted to offer something a little different here. And we are tentatively going to be opening, I believe, in November. So that will be coming soon. And some of the things are going to be very cool, especially there's like a direct-to-fabric printer. So, you know, you have your image and it'll just like run through a printer, like instead of paper. A bookbinding heat press, high volume paper cutter, embroidery machines, sewing machines, and a quilting machine, which if you are a quilter, it is expensive, and to send your quilts out to get quilting, so you'll be able to do that. So we're very excited about the capabilities. And then also, I just want to point out that image that is above that in my director's report of the Indiana State Fair, that is Sydney, who works at our Ignite studio. She designs a lot of these. She also does each month a calendar page, and they're just really lovely. The State Fair one is my favorite, but she does that on the new Rhythmograph machine. And so if you're wondering what that looks like, that is something that you can create on there. And then
the library will be closing in 6 minutes. Please return borrowed electronics or kids to staff and begin feeding in children's toys.
Finally, I just want to talk about this partnership that Chelsea has developed with HSE schools in their marketing department. HSE schools, Bill Delisle runs this program there, and she worked with interns last spring, and they worked on some campaigns. We have another set that are going to be starting very soon, and it just went really well. And because that program went so well, we hired an intern to work with us this summer. And Lily, I don't know if you've seen, if you follow us on social media, I hope you do. I hope you all follow. But she captured just beautiful images and did such a great work, like great job this summer. And we're going to be able to use those and a lot of other things going forward. But she also created this video for Library Card Sign Up Month, and we would like to show it now.
You use a drone there?
Yes,
Cool.
yes. That's a friend of hers from high school did that.
Trying to turn it on. They're saying they love the library. Lots and lots and lots.
And both. And I've been with my family, my brothers and sisters. I would say my favorite spot in the library probably be the beanbag spot because I just love sitting down and just, having a good time.
If you haven't been to the library, you have been missing the entire world. Everything you want and need is at the library, especially here at Ignite Studios. The reason I love Ignite Studios is it's hands-on, curious, one of a kind, and it really stimulates creativity within you, within your family, your kids, your neighbors. Like it's where we come when we've got nowhere else to go and nothing else to do.
Well, both the library and the city are dedicated to serving the same audience, which is our community. We both want Fishers to be a vibrant, dynamic destination for our residents. We really value the spirit of collaboration. The library is such a great partner in making Fishers a great place to call home and providing our residents with all sorts of programs and resources and services, mostly for free. We always see the outreach vehicle for HEPL at our events and special programs and parks, really providing an interactive educational experience for our residents. Everything the library offers, from the Ignite Studios to the free programs, to the little ones like story time, to the Seed Library, one of my personal favorites, is such a great asset for our community.
I love the read. I love the library. Is toys. I want to go visit on the library.
If you are a small business owner or an entrepreneur in the area, the library has a ton of resources for you, including our digital media labs, which are found at both library locations. Within those, there is the Creative Cloud Suite through Apple, as well as Podcast Studio. And we also have business databases for you and financial databases like the Niche Academy. I recommend our libraries to remote workers and entrepreneurs all the time because we have a ton of meeting spaces here, whether it's study room or meeting room, and we have free Wi-Fi access and computer access, as well as printers and scanners. Definitely, my favorite thing is the large print books. I read the library so frequently, and I've been so successful in finding so many books that I can read without my eyes started to hurt. Just a wonderful, wonderful thing. I am so happy and proud to be living in this community where we are so focused on Indigenous places and in many, many, many ways. It isn't just writing material, reading material. I see so many things often at the library, art, craft, how to make copies of things and crazy stuff that I don't know anything about. There's just all kinds of focus on education, and that's what this world has. We're going faster and faster, and the library, I believe, keeping up.
Created by a teenager, and I'm so impressed by everything that she did, and so we have a lot of talented young people. So that is the end of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Nothing else for you? No other old or new business. We are to adjournment. Our next meeting is September 18th, 2025, 6:15 in Fishers.